Timon could not sleep. 3 days had passed since they found the human ship, and he spent every waking moment connected to its database. Captain Velther had ordered him to maintain minimal contact, but Timon could not stop himself. The information was too important, too incredible. The database was enormous. Humans had recorded everything about their world, their history, their biology. Timon sat in his quarters, screens floating around him in the darkness, each one showing another impossible fact about Earth. Temperature swings. Timon stared at the graph. Earth's surface temperature could change from -40 to +50 in the same year. His own world never changed more than 10 degrees. How did anything survive such extremes? But humans did not just survive. They lived everywhere. The database showed human settlements in frozen wastelands where water became solid rock, in deserts where the heat could cook flesh, in jungles where millions of species fought for survival, on islands surrounded by oceans so deep that light never reached the bottom. They even lived in places they called cities, where millions of humans gathered together in one place. Timon tried to imagine that many predators living so close together and not killing each other. It seemed impossible. The ship's computer had medical files. Timon opened them, then wished he had not. Human biology was terrifying. Their blood was based on iron, a metal that rusted and corroded. Yet somehow humans used it to carry oxygen through their bodies. The oxygen levels they breathed would cause fires on most civilized worlds, but humans needed it to survive. Their digestive system used acid, strong acid, the same type of acid that could dissolve metal. Humans put food into their bodies and burned it with acid to break it down. The very thought made Timon feel sick. Their bones were not just structural. They grew new blood cells inside the bones themselves. And their immune system was constantly at war with everything, including their own bodies. Humans lived in a state of permanent internal conflict, their bodies fighting invisible enemies every single day. But the most shocking thing was their healing ability. When humans got hurt, their bodies repaired themselves. Slowly, painfully, but they repaired. Bones could regrow. Skin could seal itself. Even some organs could regenerate partially. They were built to take damage and keep going. What kind of world creates something like this? Timon whispered to himself. He opened the file labeled Human History, and immediately regretted it. Humans had been killing each other for thousands of years. Wars, conflicts, violence on a scale that made Timon's blood run cold. They had invented weapons specifically designed to hurt other humans. They had fought over land, resources, ideas, beliefs. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, but mixed in with the violence were stories of sacrifice, of humans protecting each other, of choosing peace even when war seemed easier. They had poets and artists, scientists and teachers. They built libraries to store knowledge and hospitals to heal the wounded. They created music that expressed emotions Timon could barely understand. They were contradictions, violent and gentle, destructive and creative, selfish and selfless. The database had videos. Timon watched one showing humans in something called the Olympics. They competed in tests of strength, speed, and endurance. Timon saw them run faster than should be possible, jump higher than their bodies should allow, swim through water like the predators that lived in Earth's oceans. One human lifted a weight that was 3 times his own body mass. Another ran for over 2 hours without stopping. A human female performed flips and twists in the air that defied gravity itself. They do this for fun, Timon realized. They push themselves to the limit for entertainment. He found the crew manifest next. 28 names. 28 humans who had left their dangerous world to explore space. Timon read each file carefully. Captain Dayan had been a pilot before becoming captain. His record showed 14 years of service, multiple commendations for bravery, and a note that he had once landed a damaged ship manually when all computers failed. He had a mate and 2 offspring waiting for him on Earth. Chief Engineer Ji-won was a specialist in fusion reactors. She had designed parts of the ship's power system herself. The note said she was patient, brilliant, and had a tendency to sing while she worked. She grew something called roses in the ship's garden, medical. Officer Yuna had studied on Earth for 12 years before joining the space program. Her specialty was xenobiology, the study of alien life forms. She had written papers about how to provide medical care to non-human species without harming them. She played an instrument called piano. Pilot Hyunwoo wrote poetry. Actually wrote poetry, composing verses about nebulae and distant stars. His file showed he had perfect reflexes and could fly through asteroid fields that would make most pilots panic. Security Chief Minji practiced something called martial arts. The videos in her file showed her fighting style, precise, controlled, devastating. She could disable an opponent in seconds without causing permanent harm. Her notes mentioned that she was kind to children and loved animals. Botanist Subin maintained the ship's garden. Teeman opened the garden database and felt his stomach turn. She grew tomatoes, peppers, onions, garlic. Every single plant would be classified as toxic by galactic standards. Humans ate poison for pleasure. One entry made Teeman laugh despite himself. Subin had grown something called ghost peppers and challenged the crew to eat them. The medical logs from that day showed multiple crew members with elevated heart rates, sweating, and temporary pain. They had done it voluntarily. For fun, the personal logs painted pictures of the crew. They had movie nights, watching stories from Earth. They celebrated birthdays and holidays. They exercised together in the gym, pushing each other to work harder. They played games and told jokes and argued about philosophy. They were explorers, scientists, dreamers who had left their world to see what was out there in the universe. Then Teeman reached the final logs and everything changed. 3 months ago, Taiwan's Hope had encountered something in the outer veil. The sensor logs showed it as a massive energy signature, but the shape was wrong, constantly shifting. The crew had called it the entity. It had attacked the ship. Not with weapons, but by draining power, by feeding on the ship's energy. The reactor began failing. Life support started shutting down. Any other crew would have panicked, but the humans had done something incredible. They fought back. Captain Daeun's log entry was calm, almost matter-of-fact. The entity has breached the hull in Section 7. Ji-won is rerouting power to create electromagnetic pulses. It seems to disrupt the creature's cohesion. Minji is leading a team to repair the breach. They are working in vacuum. I'm proud of this crew, working in vacuum. Teeman read that twice to make sure he understood. The hull had been breached, exposing that section to hard space, and humans had gone out there in suits to fix it while being attacked by an energy creature, the logs continued. Ji-won had managed to pulse the reactor, creating bursts of electromagnetic energy that hurt the entity. But it adapted, learned to avoid the pulses, so the humans changed tactics. They lured it into the cargo bay. Used themselves as bait, walking around in the open to attract the creature. When it followed them inside, they sealed the doors and vented the entire section into space. The entity, suddenly exposed to the void without a power source to feed on, dissipated. It worked, but the ship was badly damaged. The reactor was operating at 40% capacity. Life support was failing. Hull breaches were patched, but not properly repaired. They could not make it back to Earth. The crew had held a meeting. The logs showed them debating options. Some wanted to wait for rescue, but they were in the outer veil. No one came here. Others suggested trying to limp to the nearest system. But the calculations showed they would run out of air before they arrived. Captain Daeun had made the final decision. They would abandon ship in the emergency pods. The pods were designed for human durability, built to survive almost anything for a limited time. They would scatter to different systems, hoping that at least some of them would reach safety. Before they left, they recorded everything. Their mission data, their personal logs, their plea to be judged fairly. They left instructions on human biology, on how to care for them if found, on what they needed to survive. The last log entry was from Daeun. To whoever finds this ship, we are human. From Earth, we came to explore, to learn, to document the beauty and diversity of the galaxy. We followed our own version of the Prime Directive, observing but never interfering with developing civilizations. We have recordings of 47 species, all carefully documented for future contact when they are ready. We fought a creature in the void not because we are violent, but because we wanted to survive, to go home. Please judge us by our actions, not our appearance. Judge us by our kindness, not our capability for violence. We just want to go home." Timon sat in the darkness, surrounded by screens, and felt tears running down his face. These humans, these impossible Deathworld predators, had done nothing but try to be good. They had explored with respect. They had fought only when necessary. They had sacrificed everything for each other. He thought about galactic law. Any Class 3 Deathworld species was to be quarantined immediately, studied from a distance. The alarm bells rang through the harmonious dawn, making everyone jump from their seats. Timon ran to his station, his 4 fingers moving fast across the screen. Something big was out there in the darkness of space, something that should not exist. Captain Velther moved his long body toward the main screen. His species came from a gentle world with soft winds and warm rain. Out here in the outer veil, everything felt wrong. The radiation levels were too high. The space dust was too thick. "No ship should be here? What do you see?" Velther asked. Timon stared at the numbers. His eyes grew wide. "A ship, Captain. But the materials... I have never seen anything like this before. The computer cannot identify what it is made from." The ship floated in the void like a giant metal beast. It was dark gray, covered in scars and marks. Timon could see burns on the hull, deep scratches that looked like claw marks, and holes that had been patched with metal. The ship had been through war. How was it still in one piece? Hannah whispered. She was the security officer, trained to spot danger. Her small frame shook as she looked at the readings. "Captain, that ship has been through a particle storm." "Nothing survives particle storms." "Apparently something does," Velther said quietly. The crew gathered around the screens. They came from 12 different worlds, all part of the Galactic Council. They had seen many things in space, but this was new. This was impossible. Minho, the engineer, checked his instruments 3 times. The radiation coming from that ship would kill us in minutes. But look at the hull. It is designed to handle it. No, not just handle it. It is built for it. What kind of species builds ships for environments that deadly? Someone asked. No one answered. They all knew what kind. A Deathworld species? But Deathworld species were myths, stories told to young ones to make them behave. The Galactic Council had laws against even looking for such worlds. Planets where the gravity crushed bones, where the air burned lungs, where the animals hunted anything that moved. No intelligent life could come from such places, yet here was a ship that proved otherwise. "We should leave," one crew member said. "We should report this and let others handle it." Velther thought about it. The safe choice was to run. But Velther had not become a captain by always being safe. "Timon, scan the ship. Look for life signs." Timon worked his station. Minutes passed. Finally he shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. The ship is empty, but..." "The power is still on?" "Barely, but it is there. An automated system?" "Maybe, or the crew left recently." Velther made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team. Hannah, Minho, Timon. You 3 will go. Full protective suits. If anything seems wrong, you return immediately." The 3 of them put on the thickest suits the harmonious dawn had. The suits were built to protect them from almost anything. They would need it. The small transport ship carried them across the empty space between the 2 vessels. As they got closer, the alien ship grew larger and larger. It was massive, much bigger than their own ship. Timon felt his heart beating fast. The airlock opened for them. That was the first surprise. The ship recognized they wanted to enter and help them. That meant someone had programmed it to be friendly, or at least neutral, inside. The gravity hit them like a wall. Timon fell to one knee. His suit showed the reading, 1.2 standard units. That was crushing. His own world had 0.8 gravity. This was 50% more. How does anyone work in this? Minho gasped. They forced themselves to stand and walk. Every step was hard work. The corridor stretched ahead of them, lit by soft blue lights. The walls were covered in writing, symbols they had never seen before. Angular, sharp, efficient. Hannah pointed her scanner at the walls. Look at this. Pictures covered one section. A world, blue and green and white, floating in space. It was beautiful, but Hannah's scanner was screaming warnings. The atmosphere readings showed oxygen levels at 21%. That was insane. Oxygen was dangerous at those levels, highly flammable. The gravity reading was 1.0 standard, which was already considered heavy. Temperature swings from freezing cold to burning hot. This is their homeworld? Tiemann whispered. This is where they come from. More pictures showed the creatures who lived there. They stood on two legs, had two arms, and faces with forward-facing eyes. Predator eyes. Eyes that looked straight ahead to track prey. Their mouths showed teeth, flat ones for grinding and sharp ones for tearing. They were hunters who could also eat plants. The worst combination. But in the pictures they were smiling. They stood in groups, arms around each other. They held small versions of themselves, young ones. They showed joy and love and bonds that went deeper than simple cooperation. They are social, Hannah said. Pack hunters, maybe. That makes them even more dangerous. They moved deeper into the ship. The cargo bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, they found crates secured to the floor. Tiemann opened one carefully. Inside were samples. Plant specimens and preservation tubes, each one labeled with care. The writing was in that same angular script, but numbers were numbers. Tiemann could see coordinates, dates, careful scientific notation. These were not raiders or warriors. These were explorers, scientists. Another crate held what looked like personal items. Clothes made from soft materials, sized for bodies much larger than theirs. Pictures on strange flat devices that activated when touched, showing more of these creatures living their lives. Music players that, when activated, created sounds both harsh and beautiful. Minho found something that made him stop. Look at this. It was a book made from actual pressed plant material. Old technology, ancient even. But it was well kept, clearly treasured. The cover showed symbols and an image of that blue-green world. Inside, the pages were filled with more symbols and pictures of creatures from that world, animals, hundreds of different species, all sharing one planet. Their world has bears, Minho said, translating the scanner's best guess. And wolves, and things called lions, and great white sharks. And they lived with all of these? Tiemann felt cold despite his suit's heating. What kind of species shares a world with that many predators and survives? The species that becomes the top predator, Hannah answered quietly. The ship's lights suddenly grew brighter. They all jumped, hands going to their weapons. A screen on the wall activated. A sound began playing, harsh and guttural at first. But then the translation matrix kicked in. If you are hearing this, our crew has abandoned ship or perished. The voice was deep, resonant, with a quality that made something in Tiemann's brain light up with warning signals. This was a predator's voice, designed to carry across distances to command attention. We are the exploration vessel Taiwan's Hope, from the third planet of the Sol system. We are human, and we were just trying to go home. The message continued, explaining their mission, their purpose, their desperate situation, but Tiemann barely heard it. His mind was stuck on one word. Human. A Class 3 Deathworld species. Not just Class I, which was already considered nearly impossible. Not Class 2, which was mythical. Class 3, the highest classification. Worlds so hostile that evolution itself became a weapon, creating species that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, overcome everything. And humans had built ships, had traveled to space, had explored the galaxy while everyone else hid behind their climate-controlled habitats and safety protocols. Captain, Tiemann said into his communicator, his voice shaking. You need to hear this. Everything has changed. Everything. On the screen, the message finished with coordinates. places where the crew might have gone in their escape pods, a plea to whoever found them to judge them by their actions. Not their origins. The three of them stood in that cargo bay, surrounded by the evidence of a species that should not exist, and realized that the galaxy had just become a much different place than anyone had thought possible. The search took 3 weeks. The harmonious dawn followed the trajectory calculations from the human ship's database, jumping from system to system, scanning for the small energy signatures of emergency pods. The crew was divided. Some thought they were wasting time. Others worried about what would happen if they actually found living humans. Hannah organized security drills, preparing the crew for potential danger. Minho reinforced the cargo bay, creating a separate section that could be sealed off if needed. Only Teeman seemed excited rather than afraid. They found the first pod orbiting a small moon near a gas giant. The pod was dark, its power nearly depleted, but the life signs were there. 3 heartbeats, slow and steady. Hibernation mode. "Bring it aboard," Velther ordered. Carefully. The pod was larger than their standard escape craft, built like a tank. Even depleted and damaged, it had survived weeks in space that would have destroyed normal pods. They guided it into the cargo bay using tractor beams, afraid to touch it directly. Teeman was the first to approach. The pod's exterior was covered in writing, the same angular human script. He recognized some of it from his studies. Emergency instructions, medical information, and 3 names: Yuna, Kyung-soo, Nari, the medical officer, and 2 crew members. Teeman felt his heart racing. These were real humans, alive, just beyond this metal wall. Dr. Chalice, the Harmonious Dawn's medical officer, studied her scanner. Her crystalline body shimmered with anxiety. "I do not know how to treat them. Their biology is completely different from anything I have worked with." "We have their medical database," Teeman reminded her. "It has instructions. Instructions written by humans for humans. What if I make a mistake? What if the translation is wrong?" Velther made the decision. "We wake the medical officer first. She can help us with the others?" Opening the pod was terrifying. The seal hissed, releasing air that smelled strange, almost metallic. The interior was cramped even by human standards. 3 bodies lay in hibernation units, their faces peaceful. Teeman saw a human for the first time in person. Yuna was smaller than he expected, but that meant nothing. She was still bigger than him, with a frame that suggested strength. Her skin was smooth, darker in color, and her hair was black like the void of space. Her face was relaxed, but even in sleep, those predator eyes were visible beneath closed lids. Following the instructions was nerve-wracking. They had to raise her body temperature slowly, introduce stimulants to wake her system, and monitor her heart rate. Humans had only 1 heart, which seemed impossibly fragile, but that heart was strong, beating steadily as she began to wake. Her eyes opened. Brown eyes, almost black, that focused immediately on Teeman. He froze, every instinct screaming danger, but forced himself to stay calm. Yuna blinked several times. Her mouth moved, forming words. The translator took a moment to process her language. "Did anyone else survive?" Those were her first words. Not, "Where am I?" or "What happened?" but concern for others. Teeman felt something in his chest relax slightly. "We found your ship," he said carefully. "We are searching for the rest of your crew. You are safe." Yuna sat up slowly. The movement was controlled, careful, but Teeman could see the strength in it. She was weak from hibernation, and she still moved with more power than anyone on his crew. She looked around the cargo bay, at the aliens staring at her with fear and curiosity. A small smile crossed her face. "First contact. I always wondered what this would be like." Then she swayed, and Teeman jumped forward to steady her. Her skin was warm, much warmer than his. Her body radiated heat like a small furnace. She looked down at him, and he realized he was touching a human, a Deathworld predator, and she was being very careful not to hurt him. "Thank you," she said softly. "What is your name?" "Teeman. I am a science officer." "Yuna, medical officer of Taiwan's Hope. Can you help me wake the others?" With Yuna's guidance, they woke Kyung-soo and Nari. Both were younger, less experienced, but just as concerned about their crew as Yuna had been. The three humans stood together, supporting each other, and Timon saw that pack mentality he had read about. They were family, not just crew members. Dr. Chalice examined them nervously. With Yuna's help, they determined all three were malnourished and dehydrated, but otherwise healthy. The word healthy felt strange when applied to beings who could survive conditions that would kill him. "We need food," Yuna said. "Human food. Your nutrition supplements will make us sick." That led to an awkward moment when Yuna explained human dietary requirements. The protein levels she described made several crew members feel ill. The calorie count was enormous. Humans burned energy like stars burned fuel. Using the ship's synthesizers and the human database, they created something edible. Timon watched in fascination and horror as Yuna ate. She chewed with those omnivore teeth, swallowing food that would be toxic to him. And she smiled. "Not as good as real food, but good enough." "Thank you." Velthor met with the humans privately. Timon was invited to translate, though the universal translator was handling most of the work. The captain explained the situation honestly. They had found the ship, learned about humans, and were now searching for survivors. Yuna listened carefully. "You are taking a risk? Your laws probably say you should not contact us." "Our laws say many things," Velthor replied. "Some of them are wrong." Over the next 2 weeks, they found 7 more pods. Each time was a miracle. Captain Daeyun pulled from a pod near a dying star. Engineer Jiwon found drifting in an asteroid field. Pilot Hyunwoo orbiting a planet too hot for life. Security Chief Minji floating in deep space with only days of life support remaining. Each reunion was emotional. The humans embraced, cried, laughed, held each other with an intensity that made Timon's crew uncomfortable. These Deathworld predators loved deeply, felt strongly, and showed it without shame. The presence of humans on the harmonious dawn changed everything. The ship suddenly felt smaller, even though the humans were careful to stay in their designated area. They moved with unconscious grace, their bodies adapting to the ship's lower gravity. They spoke in voices that commanded attention without trying to. But slowly, fear began to fade. The humans were friendly, curious, grateful. Yuna spent time in the medical bay, sharing knowledge with Dr. Chalice. Jiwon impressed Minho by fixing a reactor problem in 10 minutes that had stumped him for days. Hyunwoo taught navigation tricks he had learned flying through Earth's atmosphere. An incident almost ruined everything. A piece of equipment fell in the cargo bay, a heavy container that would have crushed anyone underneath. Minji reacted on instinct, moving faster than Timon's eyes could follow. She caught the container, held it steady with both arms, and set it down gently. The container weighed over 200 pounds. She had caught it like it was nothing. Several crew members fled in panic. The humans were confused until Yuna explained. "We forget sometimes that we are strong. We are used to our own gravity, our own physical abilities. I am sorry we scared you." Captain Daeyun called a meeting with all humans present. Timon attended to translate. The human captain was impressive in person, tall even by human standards, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands from years of work. "Captain Velthor," Daeyun said formally, "my crew and I thank you for rescuing us. We owe you our lives. But we need to discuss what happens next. Are we prisoners? Will we be studied? Locked away?" Velthor was honest. "I do not know. Galactic law says you should be quarantined. Your species comes from a Class 3 Deathworld. You are classified as too dangerous for contact." "But we have not hurt anyone." "No, you have not. We explored for 8 years without interfering with anyone. We documented developing species, protected them when we could, and prepared them for eventual contact. We are not monsters." "I know," Velthor said quietly. "I have read your logs. I have seen your work. You are explorers, scientists, exactly what the Council claims to value. But fear is powerful, and you are frightening." Daeyun nodded slowly. "What do you plan to do?" "Find the rest of your crew first. All of them. then take you to the council and let you speak for yourselves. I will present your case, your records, everything you have done, and then the council will decide. Will they listen? I hope so. Because if they do not, if they let fear win, then the council is not what I thought it was. The search continued. 16 humans were still missing. The crew of the Harmonious Dawn worked with the rescued humans, combining knowledge and resources. Teeman spent hours with Dae-yun, learning about Earth, about human culture, about their dreams of joining the galactic community. We knew we came from a dangerous world, Dae-yun told him one night. We knew other species would fear us. But we hoped that our actions would speak louder than our appearance. We hoped that showing kindness, showing restraint, showing respect would be enough. Is Earth really as terrible as the database says? Teeman asked. Dae-yun smiled. Earth is beautiful. Yes, it is dangerous. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, animals that can kill with a single bite. But it is also sunsets and oceans and mountains and forests. It is the sound of rain and the smell of flowers and the feeling of grass under your feet. It made us strong, but it also taught us to appreciate beauty, to love fiercely because life is fragile. The scanner alarm woke everyone at once. Teeman rushed to the bridge, his mind still foggy from sleep. Captain Velther was already there, studying the screens with concern on his face. We found them, Velther said. 6 pods. Altogether, that is good news, right? Teeman asked. The pods are on a planet claimed by the Kresh Collective. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Kresh. They were aggressive, territorial, and had a habit of enslaving weaker species. They respected strength and nothing else. Captain Dae-yun entered the bridge, followed by Yuna and Minji. The human captain did not need to ask. He could read the tension in the room. Problem? Your crew is on a Kresh world. They have taken the pods. Dae-yun's face went hard. Are they alive? Teeman checked his scanner. Yes, life signs are weak but stable. But Captain, the Kresh are claiming them as salvage. Salvage? Minji's voice was cold. Our crew members are not cargo. Velther tried to be diplomatic. I will contact the Kresh authorities. Perhaps we can negotiate. The conversation with the Kresh went exactly as expected. The Kresh commander, a large being covered in thick scales and sharp spikes, laughed at their request. We found them. They are ours. If you want them, trade something of value. They are living beings, Velther argued. They are salvaged from space. Our laws are clear. Galactic law says occupied pods cannot be claimed as salvage. Galactic law does not apply here. This is Kresh space. The communication ended. Velther turned to his crew. We cannot force them. The Kresh have a powerful military. Starting a conflict would be foolish. Dae-yun spoke quietly. How long do they have? Teeman checked the readings. 3 days. Maybe 4? The pod's life support is failing. Then we do not have time for diplomacy. Dae-yun looked at Minji. Can we extract them? Minji studied the scanner data. Their station is heavily defended, but it is a civilian salvage facility, not a military base. The guards will be trained but not elite. If we move fast, use surprise, we can get in and out. You are talking about an assault? Hana said nervously. An act of war. I am talking about saving my crew, Dae-yun replied. Captain Velther, I am not asking your crew to fight. Give us a shuttle, some basic equipment, and we will handle it ourselves. Velther thought for a long moment. Every regulation said he should refuse. But he looked at the human captain, at the determination in those predator eyes, and made his choice. I will not give you a shuttle. I will take you there myself. All of us! The crew erupted in argument. Some supported the captain. Others thought he was insane. Teeman found himself speaking up. The Kresh are violating salvage law. They have no legitimate claim to that region anyway. And if we let them keep the humans, we are allowing them to enslave council citizens. The humans are not council citizens, someone pointed out. Not yet, Teeman said firmly. But they should be. The vote was close, but Velther's authority carried the decision. They would attempt the rescue. The planning took hours. Minji led the strategy session, and Teeman watched in fascination as the human security chief worked. She asked questions about the station's layout, power systems, guard rotations, escape routes. Her mind worked like a tactical computer, but faster and more creative. "We need a team of 6, Minji decided. "Me, Dae-yun, Ji-won, Hyun-woo, and 2 of your people for technical support. I will go," Teeman volunteered immediately. "And I will accompany them," Hannah added. Though her voice shook slightly, the human team prepared their equipment. Teeman saw their suits for the first time, proper human engineering. They were built like armor, designed to protect against the harshest environments. Each suit had integrated tools, medical supplies, and communication systems. The humans checked each other's equipment with practiced efficiency. Minji noticed Teeman watching. "Want to see something interesting?" She activated her suit's enhancement systems. Servos wind to life, artificial muscles engaging. "Our suits amplify our strength by about 40%. Helps when we are working in high gravity or moving heavy equipment." Teeman did the math in his head. Humans were already strong. Enhanced humans would be terrifying. The approach was tense. The Harmonious Dawn moved into position near the Kresh station, pretending to be a trader requesting docking permission. While the Kresh were distracted by negotiations, a small transport pod detached from the ship's underside. Flying silent and dark toward the station's maintenance sector, they docked without alarms. Gi-won connected to the station's systems, her fingers moving across the interface with practiced ease. "Security feeds are looped. We have maybe 15 minutes before someone notices." They moved through the station in single file. Teeman felt ridiculous next to the humans. Even moving carefully, they seemed to flow through the corridors like water, silent and purposeful. Hannah stayed close to him, her weapon ready, but her hands shaking. The first guard appeared around a corner. Before Teeman could even process what was happening, Minji was moving. She crossed the distance in 2 steps, her enhanced suit making no sound. The guard turned, started to shout, and then Minji's hand was on his throat, pressing a nerve cluster. The Kresh slumped unconscious. "Non-lethal," Minji whispered. "We are not here to kill. Just to recover our people." They found the pods in a storage bay, stacked like cargo. The sight made Dae-yun's jaw clench. His crew, treated like objects? Teeman saw something in the human captain's eyes then, something primal and dangerous. But Dae-yun took a slow breath and nodded to his team. "Let us get him out of here." Gi-won worked on the pod controls while Hyun-woo prepared the transport mechanism. They had practiced this during the planning. Quick, efficient, professional. Then the alarm started blaring. "Someone found the guard," Minji said calmly. "We have about 2 minutes." "The pods are not moving fast enough," Ji-won said. "The transport system is locked down." Dae-yun looked at the pods at the sealed bay doors and made a decision. "Minji, Hyun-woo, prepare for manual extraction." "Ji-won, can you open those doors?" "Not without alerting everyone on the station." "Do it anyway." The bay doors exploded outward as Ji-won overloaded the hydraulics. Kresh guards rushed in, weapons raised. What happened next would be talked about in the galactic military academies for years. The humans moved like a trained unit, like they had practiced this 1,000 times. Minji took point, her enhanced strength allowing her to physically throw guards aside without killing them. Hyun-woo provided cover, using a sonic weapon that disrupted the Kresh's inner ear balance. Dae-yun coordinated, calling out positions and threats. A guard fired an energy weapon at Minji, the bolt hit her suit, and she stumbled but did not go down. She rolled, came up, and disabled the guard with a precise strike. The suit had absorbed damage that would have killed anyone else. Teeman and Hannah tried to help, but they were too slow, too fragile. A guard grabbed Hannah, and before Teeman could react, Ji-won was there. The human engineer who wrote poetry and grew roses struck with surgical precision. The guard released Hannah and fell. "Get the pods moving!" Dae-yun shouted "TAEM" and snapped back to focus. He worked the controls, rerouting power, bypassing the lockdown. The pods began sliding toward their transport on magnetic rails. more guards arrived. The humans formed a defensive line, protecting the pods and their alien helpers. They used minimum force, disabling rather than killing, but they were devastating in their efficiency. These were not soldiers. They were explorers, scientists, engineers, and they fought like warriors when their family was threatened. Minji took a direct hit from a heavy weapon. Her suit sparked, servos grinding, but she stayed on her feet. "That hurt," she said calmly, then disabled 3 guards in quick succession. They reached the transport pod with all 6 human escape pods secured. The humans backed away slowly, covering each other, never breaking formation. When a Kresh commander tried to block their path, Dayan stepped forward. The 2 beings faced each other. The Kresh was larger, covered in natural armor, bred for combat. Dayan was human, smaller, weaker by comparison. But the look in the human's eyes made the Kresh pause. "Let us leave," Dayan said quietly. "We have what we came for. No one else needs to get hurt." The Kresh commander looked at his disabled guards, at the determined humans, at the evidence of what happened when someone threatened their crew. He stepped aside. The return trip was silent. Timon's hands were shaking. He had just participated in an assault on a foreign installation. He had helped start a diplomatic incident. And he had watched humans fight with a controlled fury that was both beautiful and terrifying back on the Harmonious Dawn. They revived the humans from the recovered pods. More reunions, more tears and laughter. The crew of Taiwan's Hope was whole again. All 28 members accounted for, but the celebration was short-lived. The Kresh had filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. The Harmonious Dawn was ordered to report immediately to the Council homeworld for a hearing. "They will want explanations," Velther said to DAEHYUN. The human captain nodded. "Then we will give them the truth. All of it." Timon looked at the gathered humans, at the crew that had survived impossible odds, fought creatures in the void, and just assaulted a station to save their family. "The Council needs to see what we saw? Not dangerous monsters, but people willing to risk everything for each other. Do you think they will listen?" Yuna asked. The Galactic Council chamber was the most impressive structure Timon had ever seen. It rose like a mountain from the planet's surface, built from materials gathered from 1,000 worlds. Inside, representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a space designed to make everyone feel welcome. But today, it felt like a courtroom. The humans stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by empty space. Energy barriers hummed around them, invisible but present. Security guards lined the walls, weapons ready. The Council was taking no chances with Deathworld species. Timon stood with the crew of the Harmonious Dawn, separated from the humans by protocol but supporting them in spirit. He wanted to shout that the barriers were unnecessary, that the humans had done nothing to deserve this treatment. But he stayed quiet, trusting Captain Velther's plan. The High Arbiter called the session to order. The being was ancient, its species long-lived and wise. Or at least that was what everyone believed. Today, Timon was not so sure about the wisdom part. "We are here to address the matter of species classification 37721. Designation human from the planet known as Earth," the Arbiter announced. "Captain Velther of the Harmonious Dawn, you stand accused of violating quarantine protocols, initiating contact with a Class 3 Deathworld species, and assaulting a sovereign installation. How do you plead?" Velther stood tall. "I acknowledge my actions, but I do not accept the accusation of wrongdoing. I did what was right." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Council captains did not speak like that. "Explain yourself," the Arbiter commanded. What followed was a presentation that changed everything. Velther showed the logs from Taiwan's Hope, the careful records of 47 pre-spaceflight civilizations observed and protected. He played videos of humans working together, creating beauty, showing compassion. He presented the evidence of their fight against the void creature, their sacrifice to save each other. "These humans are explorers," Velther said. "Scientists. They followed principles identical to our own Prime Observation Directive. They have shown restraint, ethics, and nobility." Representative Corvish of the Thenian Assembly stood. He was influential, powerful, and clearly opposed. Noble, they assaulted a creche station. They disabled trained guards with ease. This is not nobility. This is violence. They were rescuing their crew from illegal detention, Hannah spoke up, her voice stronger than Teeman had ever heard it. The creche violated salvage law. The humans used non-lethal force to save lives. They could have killed every guard there, but chose not to. Because they are disciplined predators, Corvus shot back. Which makes them more dangerous, not less. The debate raged. Some species argued for immediate quarantine. Others wanted to study the humans, keep them locked away for research. A few voices suggested outright extermination, though those were quickly silenced. Then the High Arbiter did something unexpected. Let the humans speak for themselves. The chamber fell silent. Captain Dayan stepped forward, and Teeman saw him truly for the first time through the eyes of the council. Tall, powerful, with eyes that tracked everything. A predator in form, but in his face was intelligence, compassion, and hope. Honorable Council, Dayan began. I am Captain Dayan of the exploration vessel Tewan's Hope. I speak for my crew and my species. Yes, we come from Earth, a harsh world by your standards. Our gravity is heavy. Our atmosphere is reactive. Our planet tests us every day of our lives. He paused, looking around the chamber. But that world also gave us beauty. It taught us to value life because life is difficult. It showed us that cooperation is stronger than conflict. We evolved as hunters, yes, but we also evolved as families, as tribes, as societies. We learned to care for our young, protect our elderly, and help those weaker than ourselves. The screens showed images of Earth, not the disasters or predators, but sunsets over oceans, children playing in parks, cities lit up at night like stars on the ground, families gathered together, art and music and laughter. We have made mistakes, Dayan continued. Our history has violence, wars, terrible choices. We do not hide from that. But we also have stories of sacrifice of humans who gave everything to save others. We have philosophers and poets, teachers and healers. We are not defined by our worst moments, but by our constant effort to be better. He pulled up the mission logs. For 8 years, my crew explored your galaxy. We found developing civilizations and protected them without asking for recognition. We documented beauty and diversity. We followed every rule we set for ourselves about non-interference. We did this because we wanted to prove that Earth's children could walk among the stars with wisdom. Yuna stepped forward next. I am a doctor. My specialty is xenobiology, the study of life different from my own. I chose this field because I wanted to understand you, to help you if needed. The idea that I might harm another sapient being is horrifying to me. Yes, my body is built for survival in harsh conditions. But my mind, my soul, my choice is to heal, not hurt. One by one, the humans spoke. Jiwan talked about her love of engineering, of building things that helped people. Hyunwoo read a poem he had written about seeing the galaxy, about feeling small and humble in the face of such vastness. Minji explained her martial arts training, how it taught discipline and restraint. How the goal was never to fight but to protect. The botanist, Subin, made several council members laugh when she talked about her garden. I grow tomatoes and peppers. They taste wonderful to us, but I understand they would make most of you very sick. I promise not to cook for you without warning. The testimony went on for hours. The council saw humans not as monsters but as people. Flawed, strong, determined people who wanted a chance to prove themselves. Then Teeman stood. I was afraid when we found the human ship. Everything I knew said they were too dangerous to contact. But I was wrong. In the weeks I have spent with these humans, I have learned that danger and threat are not the same thing. A scalpel is dangerous, but in a surgeon's hands it saves lives. Humans are powerful, yes. But they choose how to use that power. He pulled up data. The creche incident is being called an assault. I was there. I saw humans disable guards without causing permanent harm. I saw them protect me when I was in danger. I saw them fight with precision and restraint when they could have fought with brutality. That is not the behavior of mindless predators. That is the behavior of trained professionals who value life. Minho spoke about working with Jiwon, learning from her, being impressed by her creativity. Even Dr. Chalice testified, explaining how Yuna had helped her understand human medicine. Sharing knowledge freely without reservation, the evidence was overwhelming. The humans had done everything right. They had shown ethics, restraint, compassion, and competence, but fear is powerful. Representative Corvesh stood again. Everything we have heard is compelling, but it does not change the fundamental question. These beings come from a world that created them to be survivors at any cost. Can we trust that their peaceful behavior will continue? What happens when they are threatened? What happens when millions of humans enter the galaxy, not just these carefully selected explorers? It was a good question. Timon felt his hopes sinking. The council was going to reject them. Then Captain Daeyeon spoke again, his voice quiet but carrying across the chamber. You ask what we will do when threatened. Let me tell you a story. 50 years ago on Earth, there was a war. Not between humans and aliens, but between humans and humans. It was terrible. Many died. But in the middle of that war, enemy soldiers stopped fighting on one day. They climbed out of their trenches, walked across the battlefield, and shared food and songs together. Then they went back to fighting the next day because orders said they must. But for one day, they chose peace over violence. He looked around the chamber. That is what humans do when threatened. We fight when we must. We protect what we love, but we also know when to stop fighting. We know the difference between an enemy and someone who is just different from us. We want to be part of this council not because we need you, but because we believe in what you represent. Unity, cooperation, peace among the stars. The High Arbiter called for a recess. Hours passed while the council debated in private. The humans sat together, holding hands, supporting each other. Timon stayed close, along with the crew of the Harmonious Dawn. Whatever happens, Daeyeon said quietly, thank you. All of you. You gave us a chance when you did not have to. Finally, the council reconvened. The High Arbiter stood and the chamber fell silent. The council has reached a decision. The humans of Earth will be granted emergent species status. Hope surged in Timon's chest. Earth will be contacted officially and offered the opportunity to establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. Humans will be permitted to travel freely through council space, subject to the same laws as all member species. But there was more. However, this status is probationary. For a period of 10 Earth years, humanity will be observed. Any violation of council law, any act of aggression, any indication that humans pose a threat to galactic peace will result in immediate quarantine protocols. The crew of Taiwan's Hope will serve as ambassadors representing their species. Their actions will be judged as the actions of all humanity. It was not perfect, but it was a chance. Timon saw tears running down.